Hey, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Ray of Light. My name is Alan, and for today's Ray of Light, I'm gonna try doing a podcast at the same time recording a video using this mic in front of me, and of course, taking a video with my phone. So maybe for the next episodes, I'm gonna show you my setup. But in the meantime, let's talk about the the usual topic lately about yoga, at least in the Western culture. It's decolonizing yoga. And what is decolonizing yoga? So the word decolonizing, well, is not to colonize or uncolonize, or the prefix de is to not, and colonize is to to make it as your own. So for those for my audience, for those who have not experienced any colonization in their country, so here in the Philippines, we've been colonized by quite a number of countries, starting with Spain for 500 years, and with America, and with Japan. And we've been colonized by this, well, we now treat them as friends, as we're done, I guess, with the world of colonizing other countries. Okay, but in that in those times, when you colonize a country, it means that almost wanting everything as your own, by killing the culture, by killing the people, by killing how they live, by killing what they believe in, by killing even their deities, their religion, their gods. And that's how colonizations come about. Now, decolonizing yoga, remember that yoga originated from India. And now that there's a lot of yoga schools popping here and there, especially in the time of pandemic, that some teachers, given that they were given they passed the requirements from Yoga Alliance. And Yoga Alliance we'll talk about more next time. So these topics are mostly controversial, and I feel like it's high time that we talk about and be part of the conversation, of the discussion about decolonizing yoga. So, how do you decolonize yoga in the first place? First is, I would suggest, these are my recommendations. One is to respect the culture, respect where yoga came to be, and that came from yoga, from India. Okay? And we talk about Patabi Joyce, we talk about Desica Char, we talk about um, who else? I have to reach for my notes, basically. And while I only mentioned about two mentors, two sages, there are a lot of other um, teachers, great ones, that started this thing, this yoga. And as Patanjali mentioned from his Yoga Sutras, there are different sutras, or meaning to say, verses. So while in the Bible, in the scriptures, there are verses, we have like the Bible for yoga, and that is the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. And even from there, you also have to know the other epics that relates to yoga, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the other scriptures that we should take time to study and read about to further appreciate the practice of yoga. So, again, let me wrap things up for my first point. Yoga came from India, and from the root word, from the Sanskrit term yuj, meaning to meaning union or yoke. To yoke means to unite. And again, like I said in my previous podcast, that doesn't mean that, like what Jesus mentioned, that um, follow me and I will give you rest, so that the yoke that you carry will not be a burden anymore. Now, there's a difference with how we pertain yoga or how we pertain religion or spirituality. And while in the Roman Catholic, and excuse me to my Catholic friends, even my Christian friends, we see Jesus as someone who lifts us up from our suffering. Yoga aims that we as humans be more aware of the sufferings of our our present sufferings, and from there learn from it, and then gain more consciousness from the divine creator, from the divine nature. And there's a lot of things to tackle in just one sitting. And guess what? You're already practicing yoga just by understanding the writings, the the verses, and knowing the people, the great sages and mentors and teachers before us. So, a yoga teacher cannot be a yoga teacher without a lineage. And we all are indebted to our mentors, our teachers before. So we should know as well their names. We acknowledge them in our prayers, in our chanting when it comes to practicing yoga. Number two, the second point is that when chanting mantra, I mentioned that a while ago, we need to practice and be conscious how things are pronounced. So, Om, as simple as Om, it may sound as AUM, but if you hear an Indian sage, an Indian teacher, he would definitely mention it as directly Om. So, before even practicing or chanting yoga mantras, before and after a class, I suggest that we read up on the Sanskrit terms, the meaning of it. While it's fancy to mention terms in Sanskrit like Virabhadrasana, Utita Hastasana, Asana, and you'll hear the the the, the locals of India would mention asan with, we are used to saying it as asana or asana. The pronunciation of asan is like that, a silent A. and stress on the letter N. And so that's asan. And pranayam, so always with a silent vowel at the end. So yamas, niyamas, asan, pranayam, pratyahara, what else? Uh, or there's, sorry, I'm blacking out. But my point here is that whenever we chant something, and I know it helps in concentration. So the loka samasta sukinu bhavantu. There's a meaning to it. And that is not just, by lip service that we chant it just because we think it's fancy over the social media, or maybe to build a small community um, going around it. While we are being sensitive lately, it's because we acknowledge the culture, we respect the culture, and not just saying, oh, because we're in say in America, we say it in a different way. Or we're in the Philippines, we say it in a different way. While it's easier to, you know, given that our dialects or our language, basically Filipino, it helps us mimic or be adaptive of the Sanskrit terms and say it with ease, unlike our Western friends that would have like a different stress on the letter A's, the vowels basically. And so we need to be more sensitive to that. It's not being fancy. Again, like I said, you don't need to sound fancy, but you need to speak it with respect. You need to speak the Sanskrit terms with respect. So acknowledging it and knowing the culture behind, knowing the reason behind why is Ashtanga called as such. And you know that Ashtanga, most of you would know that Ashta is 8 and Anga means limbs. So that's why there are 8 limbs of yoga, Ashtanga yoga. And those are the 8 limbs. Yamas niyamas. Ya, yamas niyamas, asanas, pranayama, pratyahara, um, dhyana, dharana, samadhi. So those are the 8 limbs. There. Number 3. When it comes to decolonizing yoga, we also should be sensitive about coining terms to make yoga more not accessible but more attractive to new clients, to new to prospects. And I would understand that there's the fancy beer yoga. There's also the fancy maybe house yoga, maybe having those music behind to get the body flowing, so they say. And if you studied yoga, the more distractions that we have in practicing yoga, the more we are we are being brought farther away from yoga. I'm not saying that I'm not a purist when it comes to yoga. I'm just saying that, like other fitness and wellness, sports they're out there, like say Pilates, say CrossFit, say HIIT, running. There are different protocols. There are different steps before achieving yoga. And So there's a balance. We need to find that sweet balance between going beyond extremes and going that too much of of following yoga as it is. Because like I said, I would understand when it comes to marketing and sales that we need to, hype things up, or else it seems unattractive. It would seem boring. But for brands out there, you need to understand that yoga is not just the asanas, the poses that you see on the mat, but as well as the decorum, how the teacher would speak, how the class atmosphere would be. And like attending a Catholic mass, a Christian mass, maybe a Lutheran mass, right? You need to respect the rites. You need to respect how things are um, conducted, are facilitated. And probably those are the three major points that I wanted to address and share to you when it comes to decolonizing yoga. And while, like I said, I have nothing against marketing. I'm part of it anyway. I'm doing a lot of marketing for my brand. However, we have to be conscious as well. Um, when, say, using the Sanskrit terms, placing on our shirt, and even maybe just the same as the play on words, namaste on bed, because remember the namaste is a greeting before and after you practice yoga, but some would have a play on words. It's witty, I would say. One must stay at bed, so namaste in bed. While it's fancy and it's funny and it seems to show that it's all about yoga, let us be conscious. What if we an an a local from India, an Indian, would come and visit us and would say, why on earth are you playing with my vocabulary, my language? So just imagine if someone murders or plays a jab on your words, would that be offensive? So be considerate and just be careful, or probably research some more on what are the acceptable terms, what are the things that you know would be good when it comes to practicing yoga. I go back to the beer yoga. While I have friends, I have teachers, I have friends who are teachers who practice beer yoga. It's actually good and creates that opening a new audience. And the main purpose here is not just to promote, alcohol and another practice, but maybe it's more of the awareness of the practice. And hopefully, they don't just practice beer yoga all the time, but would join the regular classes of vinyasa, of hatha, ashtanga, kundalini, perhaps. And there are other ways to respect the culture. So, like I said, to summarize my 3 points, one is to understand and study the culture of yoga, where it originated, all the sages, all the mentors, all the teachers pronounce them very well. Chant mantras with respect and not just being fancy or not just lip service. And lastly, to know the culture, to be aware of the origin of how yoga came about. So that's it for today. My name is Alan, and thank you for listening. This is another episode of Ray of Light. Good morning.